Chillin' with Larry Megan.
Well, good evening on a Thursday night. We're chilling with Larry Megan. Welcome wherever you may be. We've got a great show lined up tonight. It's going to be a very busy night as well. Some of you may know, some of you guys out there that follow me on Shop NBC, you might know that I've got a 2-hour show from 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. this morning. So I've got my shirt, the coat and ties out in the green room out there. But as soon as we wrap up the show at midnight here tonight, Central Time, I'm going right to the studio for Shop NBC. So you can follow me over there. We're going to have some great deals on Sterling Originals tonight. But here on Chillin' with Larry Megan tonight, I am so excited about this show because weekend before last, a friend of mine here in Minneapolis, he knows I'm into the old-time music and, the classic films from, the golden era and, of course, jazz music and all of that. And he said, Larry, there's this film at the Minneapolis St. Paul Jazz Festival that you've got to come see. I think you'd like it. And so I went with my friend, and it was called The Girls in the Band. It's a movie about female jazz musicians. And, it's been a long time for me since I went to a movie theater and saw a movie of any kind where I was just, it was gripping. I was hanging literally on every frame of that movie. I loved it so much. It's a very eye-opening movie. It's a documentary. Recently, someone told me, oh, Larry, you're going to love The Artist. They know I like the old films and everything, and it's about the silent movie era and all that. And I know it won the Academy Award this year, but to me it was, it was very disappointing. I just did not love it at all. And here I went to this, I don't want to say little documentary because I don't want to marginalize it in any way, but comparatively, when you speak about budgets on films, a smaller level production, and I loved it. It was just fantastic. After the movie was over, the lady who produced the movie, she was there to answer questions, and I went up to her and met her, and I purchased one of the DVDs and everything, and I just, had to invite her to be on the show. Little did I know that I was going to be able to hook up with her so quickly. She said that she's from Los Angeles, and I thought she might live here in Minneapolis, but I found out she's doing the whole festival film circuit all over the country, and she is from LA. I said, well, we can do it by video Skype, and so she's with us tonight. Her name is Judy Chaikin. Quite a lady, quite an impressive background on her. But we're going to get to her in about 25 or 30 minutes. So you want to hang for that, get your friends involved. We're going to take live call-ins. So I'm very, very excited about that. Now, also tonight, what we're going to do, and how are we doing out there, Ronnie? We're doing okay. We got a nice kind of a smaller crowd right now. I think it's going to build as we go, Ronnie. But we appreciate you being there with us. We're going to give away a gift tonight. And this is going to be from our sponsor, ZuluTimezone.com. Mark from Zulu said, go ahead and give away another. We gave one away on Davis After Dark earlier this week. He's got a couple more. It's really cool. It looks like a book, okay? But it's really a watch box, or you could put anything in there you want. You can put it on the bookshelf and you can hide a watch in there or whatever you want to hide. So it's a hideaway box. And it's really cool. He says he sells them for like $30 or something like that on his website. And he's only got a few of them left. So it's got a nice retail value, and we're going to give it away free. So the way you can win it is if you go to our Facebook fan page, and you'll notice on the right-hand side, you'll see the little icons over there. It says like the Facebook icon and the Twitter icon and those kinds of things. All you have to do is click on the Facebook icon, and it will take you to our Acorn TV Facebook page. And if you haven't liked us already there, then by all means, please like us and help us to spread the word about what we're doing. And on that Facebook fan page, we've got Stacia and Maddie out here, so they're going to be monitoring the Facebook page out there. And if you have any questions, feel free to write your questions right there on our Facebook page, and we're going to do our best to answer those questions for you. And also, you can give us a call live. So the best question of the night, or what we feel is the most deserving question of the night, is going to get that gift, and we'll announce that at the end of the show. Let's see, any other business to clean up here? Once again, that gift is from ZuluTimezone.com, and I want to thank Mark for offering that up. That's very nice. All right, let's see. All right, now Do Re Mi tonight. We're going to make it a little bit abbreviated here. I'm going to try and fly through it rather quickly because we have such a great guest tonight, and I can't wait to get to that. But as you know, I like to follow the singing competition shows. I just love them, probably because I can't sing a note. But this week on The Voice and American Idol, we're going to fly through if we can. For The Voice, what they had going on was they were in their final 8 contestants, and they're going to cut it down to 4. So each of the 4 teams, Team CeeLo, Team Adam, of course, Team Blake and Team Christina, has 2 contestants remaining on their teams. They're both going to perform on Monday night, which they did. And then the one who gets the most votes combined with the judges' input is going to be the one to advance to the finals. So each of the 4 teams will be sending one singer to the final next week. And it's kind of an unfortunate situation because I think by everybody's consensus, the 2 best singers in this competition are both on the same team. I think everybody would agree. Most people have written about it. It's not just my opinion, but Jamar Rogers and Juliet Sims both are on Team CeeLo, and they both are probably the top 2. They certainly both deserve to be in the final 4, but that's not going to happen. One of them is going to have to go home. And all the way leading up to the semifinals this week, it has been Jamar Rogers that has been the number 1 vote getter on Team CeeLo. So it wasn't looking good for Juliet, my favorite in the competition. I just think she's too good to be denied. And, well, you're going to see what's going to happen there. So first up on the night was Team Adam. And what you had here was you had Tony Luca. Now, Tony Luca, he's the one who's the former Mouseketeer from the Mickey Mouse Club. Christina's been on him all throughout the competition. He performed How You Like Me Now from the Heavy. I think this was the first time I've seen him up there without his guitar. And, of course, on this one, you saw the girls he had dancing with him. I will give Tony a lot of credit. He really did command that stage, and Blake Shelton praised Tony for his Robert Palmer thing, and it was kind of reminiscent of a Robert Palmer type of song. And CeeLo really gave him a great compliment. He said it was a really pleasant surprise, and he said, I became a fan of yours tonight. And I got to agree with CeeLo. I kind of became a fan of Tony's tonight, too. Next up was Erin Willett. Now, Erin, she's the kind of big heavyset girl on Team Blake, and she's the one whose father passed away, and she's kind of, I mean, not intentionally writing that sympathy, but nevertheless, Blake has had a special affection for Erin because of all the things she's been going through during this competition. I don't feel that she deserved to be here when they sent Jordis Unga home, but nevertheless, she is in the semifinals. She performed Without You, which was a David Guetta song with Usher. There was that version. And Blake complimented her. I got to tell you, I thought it was a horrible performance. I've read other reviews online that also agreed it was horrible. She probably was very emotional on this performance, and she was in her lower register, and she really wasn't articulating very well, and it really wasn't that good. But Blake, nevertheless, loves this girl, and he just flat out said, I would give anything to have a 10th of your talent, which is kind of funny because Blake is so talented. Later in the show, he performed. I'll tell you about that. But you saw how talented Blake is. But he said, more than anything, I would give anything to have the strength that you have, which was a comment to her, her toughness in performing, through her father dying of cancer while she's doing this show. So anyway, next up was Chris Mann from Team Christina. And if there's anybody that really is getting overhyped during this entire competition, in my opinion, it's Chris Mann. He's good, but he's an opera style of singer. He's been performing what he calls popra, so it's a combination of pop and opera. But this show for the semifinals, he went all the way back to pure opera with Ave Maria, the Italian opera song. And you can see what they're doing here, trying to make that connection to Andrea Bocelli here with the scarf, the white jacket and everything. I even think Luciano Pavarotti used to wear the scarf as well. But I mean, I'm sorry. I think it's a bad move because if you've ever heard Bocelli, I think we all have, this guy is, nice singer and everything else, but he's so far of a cry from Bocelli. It's not even funny. But nevertheless, Christina loves him. He is in the semifinals. He has been getting more votes than Lindsay Paveo, the other member of Team Christina. Anyway, Christina, one of the things, and I love Christina, you know that she's my girl, but I got to say this. During this semifinal show, more than any show throughout the season, Christina really was making everything about her. I wish she hadn't done that, but she had to run up on stage. I think she's ran up to the stage more times now than probably Carson Daly. I mean, there was no reason for her to run up there, but she was so moved. She said, Chris, you really, what'd she say? You opened it. She said, I felt like the heavens opened up when you sang. So, and Adam gave him a really nice compliment as well. He said, you lend the show credibility doing something so classy and beautiful and classic. So, maybe it's only me. I don't think he's as good as they're making him out to be, but he's in the finals. More on that later. Next up was Jamar Rogers. Now, this one is, some people would say, the best singer on the show. He's got a tremendous backstory. He sung If You Don't Know Me By Now by Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, who starred Teddy Pendergrass back then in 1972. But in the rehearsals, you saw that Jamar was taking control of the arrangement, and he made it kind of what he called 2012 by putting in electronic elements to it. And you can see here, just by his effort, you see the veins popping out of his neck. He certainly left it all out there on the stage. It was a stellar performance. No question, this guy deserves to be in the Final Four. But again, he's on a tremendous team, so it's going to be rough. But he has been the leading vote getter on Team CeeLo. But again, great performance there. And Adam Levine said, I'm just purely a fan of what you do. And CeeLo made a nice comment too. He said, the story of your life would be a bestseller. We all want to know more about you. And of course, his story, if you haven't been following it, he overcame drug addiction, and he's been battling the HIV virus now for more than 6 years, and he wasn't supposed to live to see his 30th birthday, which he celebrated last week. So they're labeling him the comeback kid. And again, a great backstory on him and a great talent and a great performance. Next up was what they did, which was kind of cool, is they had the teams perform in groups. So they went with Team Adam and CeeLo together. And you can see right here, you've got Jamar, Juliet, Katrina, and Tony all performing together. And they sang All These Things That I've Done by the Killers. And I got to say, it was fantastic. I was planning to actually show this video to you, but we're just not going to have time tonight. But it is a great performance. I thought that Juliet and Katrina's voice really complemented each other. And the same is true for Jamar and Tony. In fact, all four of their voices really mixed well. It was a great performance, and I enjoyed it. Next up was for Team Blake. Now we went to Jermaine Paul. This is like the second person on each team going now. And Jermaine, of course, is the backup singer for Alicia Keys. And he's come a long way. I don't think he deserved to be here over Jordis Unga, but he is here. Blake has kind of pushed him through. And of course, he's gotten the votes as well. Anyway, he sang a Journey song, Open Arms, where he could kind of let his voice really soar. He did a really nice job. I mean, it was a solid performance for sure. And CeeLo said, I love to hear a strong male vocal on such a sweet, sentimental song. Christina told him, you murdered that song. Christina definitely has a thing here for Jermaine, no question. And Adam gave him the ultimate compliment when he said, Jermaine, you are no longer a background singer, my friend. Today, you're in the front for good. And that brought a big smile and applause to everybody, So, and then Blake proclaimed to Jermaine, you are the one to beat. I thought that was a little premature, but nevertheless, that's his guy on his team, so you kind of expected it. Next up, we go to Team Adam. And Team Adam now, after seeing Tony Luca opened the show with a great number, you had Katrina Parker. Now, this girl has been coming each and every week, a little stronger, a little stronger. Adam has had to save her a couple of times, so Tony's definitely getting more votes than her, but she's getting stronger each week. She's 34 years old, and about 5-6 years ago, she had gotten some kind of an infection through some kind of a moss or something like that, and she was told she'd never be able to sing again. So her voice is getting stronger. She's really coming back, and she did Killing Me Softly, the Fugees version, another also sung by Lauryn Hill. But Christina, Christina has been so anti-Tony Luca. In her comments, she said to Adam that I encourage you to really look at Katrina because she is a star, telling Adam that he should give Katrina more points because at the end of the show, the judges are going to have to give their scores for their contestants, and they can take the easy way out and just say 50-50 and let the public decide, or they could give it a weighted vote. And Christina was trying to influence Adam to give this girl, Katrina, more points than Tony. But nevertheless, great performance by Katrina. And then next up was Blake Shelton. And one of the cool things about The Voice is that these coaches actually perform each and every week. And that's one of the things I do like about it. When you watch American Idol, once a season you might see J-Lo perform or Steven Tyler perform. But with The Voice, it's literally every single week. And it's, again, it just really adds to the entertainment value of the show. He did a new single of his called Over. Now back to the competition, you had from Team Christina, Lindsay Paveo. And this girl's been growing on me. I said she's had kind of a quirky voice, definitely a quirky style, not a big belting Christina type of voice for sure. But Christina said, I love seeing you in that coffee shop environment. That's your element. She's up there. She was in bare feet strumming the guitar. The first time she brought out the guitar on the show, she sang a song called Skinny Love by Bon Iver's. And she really sounded good on it. She was very happy. She did a great job, actually. And, if it was my vote, she's not my cup of tea. But at the same time, I would have voted for her over Chris Mann. But nevertheless, I don't think Christina's team is all that strong. But other people think that she does have a strong team. But nice job by Lindsay Paveo. Next up in a kind of a semi-group performance, you had Team Blake and Christina, just like earlier when you had Team CeeLo and Adam. Here you had, and you can see them right here, you had Lindsay Paveo, Chris Mann, Aaron Willett, and Jermaine Paul, and they were doing Edge of Glory, a Lady Gaga song. And the song was great, but I got to tell you, the voices just did not mix at all. Lindsay Paveo's voice, that squeaky, quirky voice of hers was kind of sticking out like a lady's dress hanging out the car door as she's driving down the street. With Chris Mann, the opera singer, the big belter with Aaron Willett, and then, the R&B guy. It just was a bad mix. It wasn't that great. The other performance was much better. And then for the finale on the show, this was my girl that I'm pulling for is Juliet Sims, and she's the hard rocker from Florida. But she can do more than rock. But she came out there and, they showed video packages on all these guys, and you could see what this meant to her, what a struggle it's been for her, because, in the rock and roll world, just like what we're featuring tonight with the girls in the band being the jazz musicians were a man's world. Well, if you're going to be a rock and roll singer, not that there hasn't been some great, rock and roll singers when you start thinking about, Annie Lennox and Patti Smythe, and, you could just go on and on and on. It's still considered a man's world, and it's tough. She said that she idolized Mick Jagger and Steven Tyler were her idols and everything, and she's been singing rock for a long time, but she can do more than that. She tore it up 3 weeks ago with Roxanne, 2 weeks ago with Torn, and this week she chose a song called It's a Man's World. How fitting for tonight when we're featuring this movie, The Girls in the Band. And I got to say, I think it was the best performance of the night for sure, and that's the one I'm going to show you. Okay, let's check it out.
This is a man's world. This is a man's world. But it would be nothing, yeah, without a woman or a girl. See, man made the cars to take us over the road. The train to carry the heavy load. Man made the electric light to take us out of the dark. And man made the bow for the water, like no made for the earth. This is a man's world, but it would be nothing without a woman or a girl. Now, see, man, think about a little bitty baby girls and baby boys, and man, make them happy, 'cause man, make them toys. This is a man's world. Would be nothing without a woman or a girl. No, he's blind. sadness. He's lost in the bitterness. 'Cause it's a man's
To end the night, from Team CeeLo, that is Juliet Sims. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. That's as loud as it's ever been in this room ever. Let's get to CeeLo last. We'll start with Adam. What did you think? Juliet Sims.
Man, that was something special. That was unbelievable. You know, you just like, I think all of us were just totally captured in that moment, and none of us were getting out of it anytime soon. You know, I've been telling you since the beginning, you're one of my favorites, and I think that what Blake was saying earlier about his own team, I'm going to say about you again. You're the one to beat tonight. You're the one to beat.
Christina.
You take me back. You take me back to a. I love you too. Yes. You got me feeling all feisty. Yes. You brought me back to a special time and place when I had this. It was familiar to the Grammys that I had done this same song, and it is a thrilling moment to feel the crowd love you like that after, because it's a very powerful song, and you know, I sing from my heart. Love me, hate me. I sing for me, and that's where you sing from too, and I love that about you.
Coach CeeLo. Not a lot of time, CeeLo.
You killed it, man. You killed it. You killed it. You murdered it. You murdered that record.
You murdered that record. Anyway, I just thought it was so incredible that for the first time ever, I've been watching these shows now, American Idol and X Factor. I've been watching for, I don't know, 7 or 8 years, something like that. I love these shows. I've never once voted ever on any of these shows. I got to tell you, I went and I voted for her. In fact, it was posted on my Facebook page. When you go online to their website and click vote, it posts to your Facebook page. They let you click 10 times. So I just went click, 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 click. And anyway, I've never been moved to vote before. And it's funny, I talked to Stacia earlier. She said that she did the same thing and she's never voted before. We didn't even talk. So this girl really laid it out there, and I'm hoping that she's going to make it through. Well, the next night now is elimination night. And here is your top 8. There to go. Again, 4 of these people are going to get sent home now. The public has had, time to put in their votes, and the judges at the end of the show on that night, they had to turn in their scores. They could go 50-50, 60-40, 51-49, however they want to do it. And keep in mind, these judges have really bonded with these contestants. They've been with them now for months, working with them, and so they do have strong feelings for all of them. Anyway, so the first one up on the, well, actually, before we get to that, let me say this. Another really cool thing they did on the elimination night in the semifinals was they brought all 4 of the finalists from last year back. If you watched the show last year, it was Dia Frampton, Vicky Martinez, Javier Colon, and Beverly McClellan. Well, and they all got to perform. I thought that was great. Dia Frampton was my choice for last year. She came in second. She was on Team Blake, and she sang "Don't Kick the Chair," a new single that she came out with Kid Cudi, Kid Cudi has won 2 Grammys. Next up, they had Vicky Martinez come out there. She was on Team CeeLo last year. That was another girl that I just loved last year. She was from Seattle. But she brought her old coach out there, CeeLo, to perform with her a song called Come Along, and it was really a great performance. to see Vicky and CeeLo together. And then Javier Colon, who won The Voice last year for Team Adam. Unfortunately, his records haven't been selling too well, but he performed a new single called A Drop in the Ocean. He did a really nice job. And then that force of nature, Beverly McClellan, came out there from Team Christina last year. And I mean, a hard rocking chick. There she is with her hair completely shaved. That's how she was on the show last year. And she did a song called Money Changes Everything. And if we had time, I would show it to you. That's Cyndi Lauper right there. And I got to tell you, Cyndi Lauper, she could be 100 years old. She's still going to just, go nuts on the stage. She was going crazy out there. I thought she was fantastic, and it was a great performance. And I agree, money changes everything. Great performance. Well, here we go now. We get into the voting section of the show. And first up for Team Christina, you see here you have Lindsay Paveo and Chris Mann awaiting the decision. And the first thing they're going to show you is what the coaches voted. And Christina voted 50-50. She gave them an even split, saying that she just wanted to let the public decide who was going to win. They came up with the public vote. It was 104-96 for Chris against Lindsay, which means the public vote was 54-46. Very, very close. And Chris Mann was the winner. And once again, Christina ran up on the stage and gave Lindsay a big hug. She really loved that girl, but she went 50-50, and Chris Mann is in the finals. Next up for Team Blake. Blake did the same thing. He went 50-50 with, here you have, of course, Aaron Willett and Jermaine Paul. Blake said he's done making decisions. Let the public make the decision. And I got to tell you, it wasn't even close. Jermaine, just crushed her, 123-77. So the public vote went 73% for Jermaine, over 27% for Aaron. Next up on Team Adam, of course, you had Tony Luca and Katrina Parker. Now, Tony Luca was expected to run away with this because he's the one from the Mickey Mouse Club days that has 500,000 followers on Twitter. The rest of all the other contestants together don't even have 200,000. So they thought this guy was going to run away with the vote. And Katrina has been really coming hard and doing a great job week after week and really building. But they show Adam's vote, and surprisingly, Adam went 60-40 for Tony. Okay, Christina was trying to talk Adam into going heavier for Katrina, but he went the other way. And what he cited was more of a bond that he had, a bromance that he had with Tony, feeling that he could work with Tony to possibly win this thing. And figuring that he's giving 60% of his vote to Tony, that means Katrina had no shot whatsoever because Tony's going to get all these votes. Well, take a look what happened on the public vote. The final score was 108-92, which means that Katrina actually won the public vote 52-48, but Tony gets in on the strength of his support by his coach, Adam Levine. So Tony's in the finals and Katrina is out. Adam felt bad about it. He gave her a big hug and she's gone. Next up, of course, was Team CeeLo, and this was the decision of the night. Here it is, probably the two best singers in the competition, Jamar Rogers and Juliet Sims. I voted for Juliet, but the fact is Jamar has been the one getting all the votes this year, the leading vote getter. Juliet's had to been saved already because she wasn't in the top. And so it looked like it was not going to be good for Juliet. But here's what happened. CeeLo gave her an extra 10% of his support. He gave Juliet 60-40. Jamar was quite surprised because he has had a tremendous connection. He said from the very beginning, CeeLo Green was his idol, and he picked CeeLo to coach him. He loved CeeLo. He was shocked, I think, that CeeLo would give more points to Juliet, but he explained it. You saw the performance, and it's a man's world. Juliet was a force not to be denied, but that doesn't mean Juliet was in, because now you have the public vote. If Jamar can, pull a fantastic vote, then he could still get in. And here's your public vote, 121-79, which means that Juliet didn't even need that extra 10%. She won the public vote from Jamar 61-39. Can't say it was my 10 votes, though, but that performance of It's a Man's World, I think, really motivated a lot of people to become Juliet Sims fans, and she won it fair and square. So Juliet is now in the finals. So the final four now, you have Jermaine Paul, Chris Mann, Tony Luca, and Juliet Sims. I'm pulling for Juliet. That was the week that was, of course, in The Voice. We're not going to have time to do American Idol. I will tell you that Skylar Lane got kicked off the show tonight. Maybe next week I wanted to show you at least a performance by Jessica Sanchez. She sang "You Are So Beautiful," the Joe Cocker song. It was great. But nevertheless, we're going to skip that. We have next week for American Idol. I think we're ready to go to a break, Ronnie. But when we do, when we come back, we're going to get to our special guest, and it's going to be all about the girls in the band. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Chill with Larry Megan.
ZuluTimeZone.com is the first and only authorized dealer for Offshore Limited in the United States. ZuluTimeZone.com is proud to support Chillin' with Larry Megan and Acorn TV. Use the discount coupon code DAD to receive an additional $20 off per item. ZuluTimeZone.com digs Chillin' with Larry Megan.
Chill with Larry Megan.
We're back now here with Chillin' with Larry Megan. Okay, if you're just now tuning in, it looked like we just got a little burst of viewership right here. We have a great show lined up. We have a filmmaker here, Judy Chaikin, and like I said earlier, last weekend or weekend before last, I went and saw this film at the Minneapolis St. Paul Jazz Festival. I was absolutely I was just gripped. It was an eye-opening experience to see this film. It really spoke to me. Judy Chaikin, I got to meet her there at the festival. I'd like to say she's really outdone herself, but when I started researching on Judy, I'm not so sure. That's going to be one of my questions. She's got a very, very impressive background here. She is a former actress, dancer, stand-up comedian. She moved into directing in the theater, where she directed Woman Speak, starring Jane Fonda. And here's a picture I was able to dig up. I hope Judy can see this. Hang on, Judy. I see you. We'll bring you in a minute. I'm going to give you a big build-up, girl. But this is from Woman Speak, which she directed. And then since then, she's worked continuously in the film and television industry, winning many awards, including 2 Cine Golden Eagles, a Billboard Best New Music Video Director Award, an Emmy nomination for her PBS documentary, Legacy of the Hollywood Blacklist. That's very impressive. Judy also took first place at the American Educational Film and Television Awards for a short dramatic film, Ain't I a Woman?, which she wrote and directed. In 1980, after directing the feature film I Never Promised You a Rose Garden, I think she was director on the second unit on that one, Judy was selected as a member of the prestigious AFI Directing Workshop for Women. It doesn't get any higher than that. And it was there that she directed a short comedy which brought her to the attention of Norman Lear. Everybody's heard of Norman Lear, or at least, a few years ago everybody heard of Norman Lear, which led her to her time with him, working on many of his shows, including One Day at a Time. Here's the cast there, Valerie Bertinelli, of course, and Mackenzie Phillips. Hello, Larry, Different Strokes. Everybody knows Different Strokes. I think she was even coaching dialects in that regard. Judy's work in comedy led her to directing the famous improvisational comedy troupe. This one blew me away, The Groundlings. my goodness, where she worked with such notable talents as Lisa Kudrow, John Lovitz, Phil Hartman, and Julia Sweeney. I love Phil Hartman. May he rest in peace. Wow, that's unbelievable. And then from there, Judy's career continued big time into television as a producer, director for ABC with FBI, The Untold Stories, her NBC specials, the Horatio Alger Awards, and Too Good to Be True. And then with CBS, she produced a movie of the week, Stolen Innocence. And of course, if commercial television wasn't enough for this lady, she wrote and directed the PBS documentary Los Pastores, which was included in the 1999 Smithsonian Institute exhibit on the art and culture of New Mexico. When I read all this and I did my own research on this, it started to make sense for me why I was so blown away by this new documentary she's done. It's so well done. She's no newcomer. Judy's short film, Cotillion 65, screened in 24 film festivals around the world and claimed awards for Best Comedy, Best Short, and Audience Choice Awards. Judy is probably most identified, though, with her PBS documentary, Legacy of the Hollywood Blacklist. And then later, Judy executive produced and directed Hollywood Remembers the Blacklist. And that was a multimedia presentation at the Motion Picture Academy's Goldwyn Theater, starring Kevin Spacey and Billy Crystal, among many other celebrities and stars. And now, perhaps her greatest work of all, we're going to ask her about that, producing and directing The Girls in the Band, a gripping film, and that's my word because I was gripped for sure, about female jazz musicians in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. It's a great privilege to have you on our show, Judy. Welcome to Chillin' with Larry Megan.
Hello, Larry. I'm thrilled to be here.
Wow. When I met you, of course, at the film festival, I really had no idea, about all these things that you have done in your background and past. It's really very, very impressive. And I guess I should have known just by the quality of that production.
Well, thank you, Larry. I appreciate that. I also appreciate all the good research you did into my background.
Well,
I've forgotten about a lot of that stuff, so it's nice to hear about it again.
Well, now you can really round out and complete it because you can say you guessed it on Chillin' with Larry Megan.
There you go.
Well, one of the things I have to ask before we start getting into this film, I mean, you've done so much in your career. Where does The Girls in the Band rank? Is it at the top? Is it close to the top? I mean, where?
I think all filmmakers like to say that their favorite film is the one they're working on at the moment. But with this one, that's really true. This has really been the most enjoyable, exciting, wonderful ride that I've had on any project. So this film ranks way up at the top there.
Well, you say the most enjoyable ride. Just from reading everything, it sounds like it was also your longest ride. It's been about 6 years now?
It has been 6 years, but that's not the longest. The Blacklist film took me 8 years to make.
Wow, I haven't seen that.
Well, it hasn't been on for a while, but it's been out there for a long time.
I'm going to have to go get it now because I'm a fan. I thought what we do before we really dive into some of the questions I do want to get to and talk to is just to give the people out there, and looks like we got a nice little crowd building right now. So I think what I'd like to do is just show about a 2-minute clip of the intro because I want to make up my own comments about the intro. I just loved it. So if you don't mind, Judy, we're going to just take a look at a 2-minute intro here just to give everybody a flavor for what we're talking about.
Sure.
All right, let's do it.
You look at this picture, and it's just amazing. This was the golden era of jazz. That photo was the pinnacle of jazz in the 50s. There are all these guys, these famous jazz musicians. Count Basie, Sonny Rollins, Horace Silver, Dizzy Gillespie, Gene Krupa, Jerry Mulligan, Lester Young, Charles Mingus. Thelonious Monk and Coleman Hawkins. That's a good combination, Monk and Hawk. And then there's these two women, But who are they? Hardly anybody knows.
There is nothing like the joy of playing music. My name is Clora Bryant. I'm a trumpetist.
Oh yes, it's always a surprise to have girl musicians. I'm Viola Smith. I'm a drummer.
There were no women with any of the big bands. I was the first one as far as I know. My name is Billy Rogers, and I played the trumpet.
I played with the greatest female band ever.
Hi, I'm Roz Cron, and I play alto sax, clarinet, and flute.
Well, if you don't feel it, forget it, because you can't play jazz unless you feel it in here. My name is Peggy Gilbert, and I play saxophone.
Well, there's the beginning of it, and I want to compliment you on this because I loved the way you came into this. You set this movie up by going to that establishing shot of a picture that we all know of these great jazz legends. It just sets the standard what you're talking about on the highest level of the music scene. That was brilliant. Was that your idea?
Yeah, I'll have to say that was my idea. You know, that picture is so iconic. And at first I was excited because, I have a phone ringing here.
You want to take it?
I was excited because I saw that photograph and there were two women in it. And I said, wow, isn't this great? There were two women in this photograph. So I'll have to use this photograph in some way in my film. So I bought the rights to use it in the film, and I had it lying around for quite a while. And it wasn't until I was pretty well into the story that I realized that it would be pretty cool if we could do that same photograph with all the women in it. And once I did that, I knew I was going to bookend the film with those two pictures.
Well, you know, that's at the end of the movie, I loved the way you bookended it. I thought it was brilliant. But going back to the front end here, it even looks like you had some kind of a special effect on where maybe you cut it out and you did it in layers. I don't know. Am I imagining things?
No, you're not imagining that, but it's not that I did it. I have some really brilliant graphic artists that I've been fortunate enough to work with. And, we designed that, and along with my editor, and we got somebody who could do that, and they made those layers. That's amazing work. It
brought it to life. I mean, like we've never seen that picture before. Like I said, everybody knows that picture. You said it was iconic, but let's face it, it's from like the 1950s. So, how good can it possibly be? It seems like you enhanced it as much as possible. You layered it. It brought it to life. It was just incredible. And then, of course, the other thing I liked about it, and that's why I let it play through to the opening title board, is the way you did the picture book where you could see the interviews and you could see the different ladies that you found. It's like we're just sitting down to this movie and it's just starting. It's like, oh, wow, okay, let's get comfortable. This is going to be good. That was brilliant.
Well, thank you. That was really an idea that came about as the result of a lot of different people. Conversations with my executive producer, who found another graphic artist. My executive producer is Mike Green, and he found another graphic artist named Robin Spihar. And they wanted to bring something special to the film that could go throughout the film as a thematic idea. And it was Robin and Mike who came up with the idea of doing a kind of a scrapbook. And I thought that was a wonderful idea. And so Robin designed the templates for it, and my editor, Edward Osejima, designed what would go into each of those. So, you know, film is a very collaborative experience, and there's a lot of people who work on it. The graphic designer who did the opening of the Harlem photo is a young man named Ari Levin, and he was really good. He did several things for us, and we've had a lot of really talented people work on this film.
Yeah, and you know, before I get into the actual subject and content, one more comment I'd like to make that really blew me away. Maybe I'm a wannabe producer, okay? So I look for these things, all right? But I love the fact that, and it must have been so hard, but I have to ask you, that this story was told through these interviews. It's one thing to have interviews and so forth, but the only time I detected the narrator was that very opening we just saw when he showed that, who were these two women? Other than that, I don't recall hearing the narrator anytime thereafter. It was all told through these interviews. It's amazing.
There are some moments in the film that are narrated. That's Dr. Billy Taylor, by the way, who's doing that narration.
Okay.
But for the most part, yes, the interviews tell the story. The women tell their own story, and it's the way that it was edited. Again, you know, we went through the transcripts and found the themes. One of the things that we did on the film that I'm very proud of, when I first got together with Edward, we talked about cutting this like a piece of music so that it would have movements, you know, different tempos to different movements, and different eras would have a different kind of a feel to them musically.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, that's what we worked from. We worked from a musical template, and we let the voices of the women be the music that told the story.
You know, it's one thing to, you know, have these interviews and have great sound bites and everything else and edit them cleverly, but it would have been probably so much easier to have some narration lead us through this thing. But it really, the narration just, it must have been difficult. I mean, I just love that. Especially when I do some research and I find out with your Blacklist movie, you had none other than Burt Lancaster as your narrator for the Blacklist movie. Was there any thought before you got into doing it the way you did it that you were going to have a narrator for this movie?
You know, the choice of having a narrator on the movie has a lot to do with the commercial aspect of the movie, because if you can get a narrator with a very big name, they can help sell your movie. To be honest, that's one of the reasons we had Burt Lancaster. But on this movie, because it was about unknown people, it was hard to get a named narrator to come on. And so it was a kind of a problem that we were working around. And as we got into it, we realized it wasn't a problem. It was a gift.
It really was. Well, okay. Let's a little bit about, you know, the content here. You know, I'm thinking to myself, gosh, if I had to do something like this, where would you even begin as far as researching this subject, finding credible people to interview? It had to be a huge undertaking. Who was the first person that, let's say, you found that, you know, was a credible interview for you for this movie that kind of got the thing rolling?
Well, we researched a lot, and because I live in Los Angeles and we had very limited budget, especially in the beginning, we had to get people who were local. So we found 3 women who were local, which was Roz Cron, Peggy Gilbert, and Clora Bryant. And we kind of pre-interviewed all of them, talked to them on the phone sometime, and went out to their houses with some of them and talked to them. And once I found those 3 women, I knew there was a film there. And those 3 interviews really set the tone for the whole film. So that was the beginning of it. Then after that, we were able to raise a little more money. I was able to travel and go other places and find other people elsewhere.
Yeah, I can see that. Having seen the movie, when you say those 3 kind of set the tone, and I just saw, on your website that Peggy passed away. She was 100 years old when you interviewed her, I think.
Yes, 100 years old. She passed away the following year at 101.
Wow. Thank God, you were able to get her on film and get this. I think that's just fabulous.
Yeah, that was my biggest thrill, that I was able to get her before she passed away.
Incredible. But as far as, like you say, setting the tone for this movie, I thought it would be a good idea. I've only got 2 more clips, and the other one I want to save for, we're going to have Roz on a little bit later, in just a few minutes, actually. But I've got a little 2-minute clip here that will let everybody kind of get the feeling of what this content of this movie is all about, what these girls went through, because for a guy like me, I'm 57 years old. Okay. I can remember, I was born in the 50s and grew up in the 60s in the San Fernando Valley, where I know where you are right now.
That's right.
I know. So, what I'm saying is I can remember, but there may be people out there watching that, don't have that feel for maybe what women went through, that it really was considered to be a man's domain. So I was able to just I could have done 100 clips, but we only did a couple. And so I just want to let everybody get a feeling for what these women went through, what it was all about. Here's 2 minutes. Let's take a quick peek at this.
There was just an unwritten law that they wouldn't hire the women.
When I was substituting for a man one time, and they called me and asked me if I could jump in, I said, certainly. So I did. And the leader wanted to keep me, and all the men in the band got together and talked the leader out of it, because he said, we don't want a girl around. We can't talk the way we want to talk, and we can't do things we want to do, and we just don't want girl musicians, and besides, they can't play very well.
Bunch of musicians behind a curtain, and who's going to tell me who's the female playing or who's the male playing? You can't do that. The music is the thing. That's the important thing.
Piano players, yes. Basses, maybe. Guitar, maybe. But mostly piano. They would not, when you put the horn up to your lip or in your mouth, that was it. They would not call you.
There it was. So it gives everybody a feel that, these women really were discriminated against.
Yeah, well, they were.
One of my favorites in the whole film, obviously Roz Cron plays a huge role in this film. And like I said, we will bring her in just a little bit. But one of my favorites in here was this. First of all the women you interviewed seemed to have such a tremendous zest for life. I mean, I don't know what the ages of all these women are. Obviously some older than others here, but these jazz musicians are still kind of swinging ladies.
Yeah, well, it's that old saying, you do the thing you love and you'll never work a day in your life. And which cuts both ways. You may never get paid for doing it, but it sure does keep you young. These women are amazing. Their zest for life, the fact that they have stayed in touch all their lives with that part of themselves that is joyous and youthful and exuberant, and they their music has kept them young forever, and doing what they love to do has kept them young forever. And that's the really criminal thing, that when women or when anybody doesn't get to do what they love, they give up their joyousness in life, and it shows, especially when you get older.
Yeah, that's for sure. I'm going to just throw out a few names. Maybe later we'll come back, go to more, because I don't want to keep Roz waiting too long. But I just want you to, if you could, Judy, tell me about your experience with them, and, maybe why they were important to your project. And I want to start right off with Peggy Gilbert.
Well, Peggy Gilbert played in bands and in her own band up until the time, I think she was 97 when she stopped playing.
Wow.
And being out here in LA, I knew of her, not because of her playing, but because in order to support herself, because there was just never enough work for women to really support themselves, Peggy Gilbert went to work for the Musicians Union and was a secretary there. And she, by day, was a secretary at the Musicians Union, and by night played gigs with her band. She had a Dixieland band at the end of her life. And I'm married to a musician, Judy Chaikin, a trumpet player, and so I knew Peggy through Jules. And I never really knew her whole story until I started doing this film. I knew that Peggy had been a saxophone player, but I didn't know all that about her. And it wasn't until I started interviewing her that I found out this incredible background that she had.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, when in the interview process, it showed that little scrapbook thing where it said she celebrated her 100th birthday, and that was kind of shocking because she really comes across as just sharp and clear and not 100.
Peggy was like that until the end of her life. She was sharp. She had a memory. That we did that interview. She sat there for about 2 hours talking straight. We stopped a couple times for her to get a drink of water, and that was it.
Okay.
Phenomenal.
Well, she added a lot to the film. The next one I have to ask you about was probably my favorite, although, Roz has a special place too, because Roz moved me to tears, quite frankly. But Clora Bryant, tell me about your experience with Clora and what she meant to your film.
Clora is just a force of life. Clora Bryant, she told me stuff about how she would be backstage getting ready to go on to play a trumpet solo, nursing her children, nursing a baby backstage. She'd plop the baby into somebody else's arms, go on stage, play a trumpet solo, come off and take care of her babies. I mean, this is in an era when women were not supposed to be outside their house doing anything. The courage that she had, that she just knew she had life by the horns, and she milked it for all it was worth. Clara's just a phenomenal human being.
What's really cool too, Judy, is in your movie, there's about, I don't know, maybe a 10-second spot. It looks like she's almost like on the Ed Sullivan Show or, some TV show.
She is. It is Ed Sullivan.
That was Ed Sullivan. It kind of looked like it was Ed Sullivan. I wasn't sure what it was, but in any case, I'm old enough to remember Ed Sullivan. But nevertheless, there was like, I don't know, 10 or 15 seconds where you could see her playing the solo, and she had like 4 or 5 male dancers behind her. I was tempted to kind of show that, but we can't show your whole movie here. So, but nevertheless, I encourage everyone, because during those 10 or 15 seconds where you see her playing, I mean, I played trumpet as a kid. That's my instrument. I got into it because of Herb Alpert, and then right after Herb Alpert, my trumpet teacher was hooked on Chet Baker. He got me hooked on Chet Baker, and to this day, Chet Baker. You heard my theme song for the show is Chet Baker. I mean, that's what I do. I love Chet, but she was killing it.
Yeah.
In that 50. So everybody, you gotta hear Clora Bryant play the horn.
Yes. Yeah, she's great, and On our Facebook page, there's a posting by a woman named Susan Fleet, who's a writer and music historian, and she has put up 2 tunes from Clora's album. Clora did 1 album. I mean, this is the tragedy. Here's a woman who should have done 15 albums. She did 1 album, but there's 2 tunes from it on the on our Facebook page, which is the Girls in the Band. So people can go there and hear Clora play.
I'm definitely going to check that out myself for sure. Now, is Clora still with us?
Oh, yes, very much so. Very much so.
Okay.
Clora will probably be coming to some of the film festivals with us and, making an appearance.
Okay. Before we reach out to Roz, there's so many, but another one I just have to bring up and mention because for me, she's one of your stars, and that's Marion McPartland. Man, is she funny.
Isn't she? She has the driest sense of humor.
I busted up in the theater with her a couple times when she talked about her mother, sobbing, about don't marry a jazz musician, you'll end up in an attic, and she said, of course, that's exactly what she did. But you have to now tell me what your experience with Marion was like, and also, what she meant to you in the film and everything.
Well, Marion is very British and seems to be very reserved when you first meet her, but she's about as down-home funky as any musician I've ever met. She's funny. She said at first that she could only give us a short time because she's very busy, which she was, and she ended up giving us an entire afternoon in her home and actually sat down at the piano and wrote a song which she dedicated to me, which is one of the
God.
Life, yeah. And she's just an amazing, marvelous, wonderful, open-hearted, generous human being. And I went to visit her about 3 weeks ago. She lives in New York on Long Island.
Okay.
And I went to see her, and she was very thrilled that this film's coming out. There's also a film out that's just about her, a documentary about Marion McPartland. And I'm kicking myself because I can't remember the title of it at the moment, but maybe it'll pop back into my head. But anyway, Marion is just a very special person. And the way she opened up on camera, I mean, she didn't pull any punches.
It was amazing. You're not kidding. She was. Now, another cool thing about getting Marion for your film was she was one of the 2 ladies in the iconic poster.
Exactly.
You actually dug her up.
So wonderful that we had her in the beginning and in the end. She bookends the film.
She's the only person that's in both, right?
Yes, that's right.
From, what was that, 1958 or 50?
1958. And
Wow.
we did ours in 2008. So it was exactly 50 years later.
Okay, great.
And it's done on the same steps, the same stoop, the same brownstone, same street in Harlem.
So she came in from Long Island. I lived in New York for 6 years. I lived there, and I moved out here a year ago. But anyway, I thought she just added so much. Well, we're going to hang tough here, and we're going to get back to a lot of it, but you're going to stay right with us because we have truly one of the stars of your documentary, Roz Cron, is on the line. Roz, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
And
Hi, hi, Judy.
Okay, great. You can both hear each other?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Well, Roz, I have to say, I mentioned it earlier. I don't know if you were watching us on the internet or not, but you actually moved me to tears in this movie. And when we asked Judy if there was maybe somebody from the film that we could maybe bring into the webcast tonight, and she said Roz, I mean, I couldn't even believe it, not just some side person here, really in many ways the star. But Roz, what was this like for you as far as doing this documentary with Judy?
Well, it was so exciting. I never thought, certainly in the last 60 or 70 years, that someone would actually come up with the risk involved and come up with the excitement and to keep us all moving. This is a lady who said, I'm going to make a documentary of women musicians. Now, who had ever heard of that? What courage it took to even think about it, and then to go on with it and keep going and keep going. In spite of so many problems along the way, she just never gave up, and it just gave us all a new lease on life, especially those of us who are a little bit older. Mm-hmm. And it's brought back so many wonderful memories, and it's given me new memories to have. So I can't thank her ever enough for all that hard work that she did and is still doing to bring this forward for all of us.
All right. Well, I've got some direct questions for you, Roz, and I want to try and pull some things here from you. But before we do, I do have one final clip to show, and I don't want to beat around the bush. I want to get right to it because I think it really is an important point in the whole documentary. I mean, this documentary has everything, Judy. You have, you're laughing out loud one minute, and the next minute you're almost crying.
Right.
I mean, it's amazing the emotions that you, or maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just an old sap. I don't know. But anyway,
I hate to think it's my claim to fame that I bring everybody to tears.
No, but sweetheart, listen, Roz, it's all good. It shows you that there's a reason why this film had to be made, I think, and it just lends so much to it all. It's not all just fun and games. So if we could, bear with us. This one's a little bit longer. I think it's like 3 minutes or 3.5. But I want everybody, we got a nice crowd looking in right now, and I'd like everybody to see a really gripping moment in the film. Let's check it out. Roz Cron.
Okay.
Upper and lower berths like a Pullman car. And that was our home on wheels. Had a little bathroom in the back.
There was a great danger for the band, for everybody in the band, for our bus driver. We all found it was much easier if I just stayed in very dangerous places in the bus.
And I also remember some places they would accept you, some places didn't have room for you, If we didn't sleep on the bus, we wouldn't have a place to stay.
We played theaters, we played dance halls. If we were in a theater, the white folks would be downstairs and the ropes would be dividing the blacks and the whites.
Everything was segregated, everything. There could be no fraternization between the races.
The problems of traveling in the South were the same for male bands as they were for female bands. But the women had it a lot rougher just because they were women.
There were always a group of women who would open their homes to traveling musicians, and they were saints. There was never a question that I couldn't stay in their homes, even though it was putting them in grave danger, real jeopardy. There were times on bandstands when it became pretty tricky because I was right there in the front row playing alto. There was no way to hide my face.
Well, in those days, there were a lot of bedroom integration. And there were a lot of black girls that had white parents, so they were I'm black. My mother's black. You want to see? They said, no, we don't want to go see your mother. We want to know, what nationality you are,
Mrs. Jones thought that possibly the girls could come up with a way to either darken my skin or make it a shade that would not be off-putting to sheriffs who were sniffing around trying to determine whether I was white or not. And we tried different face powders, and really, I just turned orange for the most part.
See, we had so many mixed girls in the band. The police came, and he says to my husband's manager at that time, he says, "You have white girls in this band." And my husband said, "Well, if you can pick out the one that's white, then you arrest him." And the one that he picked out was the mulatto. He never did pick out the white ones,
Yes, I feel so lonesome.
Soon we're heading back to the Williams house for sweet potato pie. We get lots of hugs from Mrs. Williams and a bag of food for each of us. As we climb aboard the bus, she calls, "Bye, chillin'. You all take care of each other, and we'll pray to the good Lord to look after you." I reach out through the open bus window, grab Mrs. Williams' hand, and say, "I know how much courage it took for you to take me into your home, and I will never forget you. And I've not forgotten." Oops. Those were rough days. Rough times. Scary times. I was surrounded by the girls with so much love, and then so many times I felt so embarrassed for my race, so humiliated by them. I wanted to lash out at them, and of course I couldn't.
Oh, why don't you and the girls warm up with a jam session? Okay, so please, let's take it.
Well, there was, Roz. Like I said, you know, when I saw that in the theater, and even subsequently, like I said, it just moved me to tears, and you could see even you still got choked up all these years later.
I still do, because the whole picture comes back to me so vividly. And I remember when I read the story to Judy, and of course I burst into tears at the very last sentence, and I put the paper up to my face, and I said to Judy, "I certainly hope you don't show this, because my face turns into a prune when I start to cry." And she said, "Oh, don't worry, we won't." So it's always moved me, and I'm not sure why to this moment it still does.
Well,
It's everybody who sees it. My husband's seen the film probably 20 times, and he cries every time he sees that scene, as do I.
yeah. One thing I'm curious, Roz, do you have, children and grandchildren?
Oh, yes, I have 2 sons and 2 grandsons.
I see. And I'm just curious, do you ever, share your experiences with them, or is that something you don't even talk about?
No, my husband wasn't too thrilled about hearing my experiences. So when the children were little, there was no reason to bring it up.
Yeah.
However, later on, when they became teenagers, and my youngest son happened to be enjoying some breakfast in Beverly Hills when an article written by Nat Hentoff appeared in the Wall Street Journal. And 2 young men in the next table were talking about it, and talking about the fact that, this article, the International Sweethearts of Rhythm, there's a story here. And my son jumped up and went over there and said, "My mother was a sweetheart of rhythm." And then he wanted to know, when he told me about the incident, he wanted to know why I never spoke about it. Well, it never came up. I was living a different life for so many years, and these were just my memories that I hoped one day I'd talk about, or at least write about. But he was so interested, and then my other son became interested, and then people were on the phone wanting to hear the story, and pretty soon everything came flooding back, and I realized I'd had the adventure of my life, those 3 years on the road with the Sweethearts.
I think I even read in my research, unless it was in the film, it's all kind of muddy in my brain here, but I think I even read online that you said you made a conscious effort to lose your Boston accent so that you wouldn't be...
Yeah, when I was on the road, and we started going south, and the experiences that I had in Baltimore, I realized I better take care how I spoke it. But it really wasn't a conscious effort. After a couple of months, I fell into the the inflections, and my voice took on a different sound, and actually it felt so comfortable that it took me a while after I came home to back to Boston to realize how much I had changed on the road. But I love speaking more relaxed and with different inflections, and feeling like, part of the group, part of wherever I was in the South.
Yeah, right now, I don't know if you have, our show on an internet computer screen for you or not, but we're showing a picture right now of the International Sweethearts of Rhythm, and you could see yourself literally, in the front row there, right in front of the drums, and you can see Anna Mae Winburn, the leader of the group there. Talk just a little bit about, the International Sweethearts of Rhythm and what that was like for you, but I'm really curious about this lady, Anna Mae Winburn. In one of the clips in the documentary, there's a few seconds there where you actually get to hear her sing, I believe, and
Right,
she sounds great. What was it like? I have to believe that she was a very strong influence for you.
Very, very much so, and not just for me. She was too, I think, every one of us, and there were 19, I believe, including the Evelyn McGee, our vocalist. She was like a mother and like a big sister, and just she never had an unkind word, and she never was at a loss of what to do at a bad moment, whether it was on the stage, whether somebody missed a cue, or whether the dancers got ahead or behind. And when we were doing acts, she learned the acts immediately within 1 or 2 rehearsals, and we never had to worry about our cues. She was right there. She was very, very knowledgeable, very musical, and she was probably one of the most wonderful women I've ever known in my life. And that includes Judy and my mom, my grandmothers, and Anna Mae. Anna Mae was very, very special to me and to, I think, everyone who ever knew her.
It also, from, I guess, reading your story, it sounds like she was, very intent on protecting you.
Oh, well, that was, unfortunately, one of the things she had to watch out for. I think you're referring to that time that the sheriff started walking around this little dance hall, and our riser was probably about 12 inches from the floor, but Anna Mae was just a general. She was on top of everything every minute that we were on the stage, whether it was a rickety old stage or in the theater. She was just there for us, and she maneuvered some musicians to come up and move Evelyn, who was singing, move her to a certain spot, move musicians to surround Evelyn, so that I was literally blocked off from the sheriffs who were walking around the room. And she was whispering out where we should go back to keep repeating this section of the tune until they made their rounds. And this was just a magical moment. It was like a general out there with his troops, keeping his troops from harm's way. I've never forgotten that moment because it was just miraculous.
Wow.
How she maneuvered everybody.
How
and
many?
Kept us playing and playing until it was safe to stop.
When you joined the International Sweethearts, did you have to audition for her or for the band?
No. I had been playing with a male band in Boston from the time I was 17. I played with male bands, young people in and out of high school, and unfortunately the timing was bad for them, but it was very good for me because it was 1943 and 42 when I started playing with the big bands in Boston. And the draft was coming on pretty strongly, so we were losing young men very quickly, and that's how I got a lot of work. I played for a young man, Georgie Graham, who had a big band, a marvelous big band in Boston. And then the band broke up, so I went on the road with another orchestra with Ada Leonard as soon as I got out of high school in 43. And then Georgie's band sort of disintegrated because so many had to go into service. He eventually joined a big band. The name escapes me at the moment, but he was playing in Manhattan, I think at the Strand Theater, and he heard about the International Sweethearts of Rhythm playing in Harlem at the Apollo. So during a break, he ran up there, and he was just so blown away by the sound of this band that he went backstage to congratulate them, and the manager Mrs. Rayleigh Jones was really in big trouble. Her lead alto player had become ill and had to go back home to Kansas City. So she wanted to know if he knew anyone, and he came up with my name and right away, and he called me from backstage, and of course I was so excited and wanted to go back on the road. And Mrs. Rayleigh Jones talked to me. I believe she did mention, because she realized that George had not mentioned that it was a black band, and she, told me that it was all colored girls, and that was fine with me. So I said I had to talk to my folks, and she called me back in the evening, and of course, my folks knew how badly I wanted to go back and play on the road, so there was no question. And I just, within, I believe it was 3 days, I met them in New Britain, Connecticut. And that was my first exposure to segregation, though. They gave me a ticket to get off at New Britain and take a cab and meet them at the church where we were going to play. And the cab driver wouldn't take me. And I didn't understand why he wouldn't take me. We just went around and around. And finally, grudgingly, he pulled up to the black community to the church. And that's when I realized, there's going to be a little problem here.
Well, obviously, you must have been a phenomenal sax player, or they wouldn't have kept you in the band. I mean, ultimately, that's what it comes down to, the music, right?
Well, my claim to fame was that I could read anything. So when I got there and Anime came out and greeted me and gave me a uniform, which fortunately somehow fit, and before long I was sitting there in the front row and on the lead chair, and I could read. If I could do nothing else in life, I was a great reader, and so that was the beginning. And when I heard that rhythm section and that powerful brass section, I knew I'd hit it. I was a happy camper.
And how long were you with the International Sweethearts? How many years?
3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
well, bringing Judy back in just for a moment here.
Sure.
If we can go to a four-way. Thank you, Ronnie. Judy, how far along were you on your research on this project before you came across the International Sweethearts of Rhythm? Obviously, there were other all-female bands that you highlighted in the movie, but it seems like this one was a very important one in history. So, how quick did that come along?
I came across the Sweethearts very early on in the research because there's a wonderful book called Swing Shift by a woman named Sherry Tucker. And when I started doing research to see what books were out there, I came across this book. And Sherry Tucker talked extensively about the International Sweethearts of Rhythm. And I think that may even be where I found Roz's name. So the Sweethearts, I knew from the very beginning, were going to be an important story here. And of course they were.
Which one that really, I was intrigued by every aspect, but what was the name of the one that had the syncopation where the blonde lady where she stood up in front of everybody and danced?
Oh, Ina Ray Hutton.
Right. I'm sorry. Yes, Ina Ray Hutton. That one seemed to be, very entertaining. I would watch her.
Yeah, she was like the Marilyn Monroe of her day, Ina Ray Hutton. She was pretty hot.
Roz, did you ever come across Ina Ray Hutton?
No, I didn't. As a matter of fact, I knew very, very few white women musicians. In Boston, I played with white male musicians. On the road for the 3 months I was with Ada, I was with female musicians. And then the rest of the time, I just met all these wonderful black musicians. Whenever we were in town together at the same time, they would come to listen to us, and we would listen to them. And I never really got to know any white female musicians, and just a few other black female musicians. We led an insulated life in the bus and traveling all the time, but it was a good life.
Well, that makes you quite a pioneer. So the Ina Ray Hutton group was pretty much an all-white female group.
All white.
Yeah,
yes.
And she was a little before my time. As a matter of fact, she had a male band too. I believe it was in 1946, and I had gone to school with a couple of the guys, so I knew that period of time. But I had heard of Honore, and I'd heard of other bands, but I never had the opportunity to really see them or hear them.
Just curious, Roz, did you have any favorite male musicians on the jazz scene? Did you have any favorites there?
Well, the one I've always listened to, and I loved his tone, his ideas, and everything to this moment, that's Paul Desmond. He's always a great favorite of mine. And when later on in life, in the 80s, I played with two black rehearsal bands, and it was they were just rehearsal bands, so it didn't matter that I was kind of a middle-aged lady sitting in front in the sax section. But I played with some beautiful, beautiful musicians in those two orchestras, just outstanding, who weren't given the recognition or the opportunity to really get, some good union gigs, and so I learned a lot those years. I learned a lot. Every time I kept coming back to play again, I practically start all over again, and then find myself playing with great, wonderful musicians, and each time was a learning experience. So,
a quick question, two quick ones here, Roz. Do you still every now and then, pick up the sax and still play around for fun, or?
Well, no, the sax became a little heavy, and then I had arthritis in both hands, but I had joint replacements, and I picked up the clarinet, which was lighter and kind of more fun in that it has a wider range. And so I played that every once in a while, and then played with a concert band here in the Valley in California.
Still?
And, that was fun, and then things happened, and so I just put it away in 2004.
Okay. Well, finally, I saw on Judy's Facebook page in my research that just this past weekend at the Newport Beach Film Festival.
Oh, yeah.
I almost said Jazz Festival, but Film Festival.
Yeah.
Judy was there with you, taking pictures. So has this experience been, fun for you? Has it been something?
It's rejuvenated me. I'm just having a ball with her. She's been so kind to invite me to these wonderful. We went to Palm Springs together, and I just had the time of my life. I just
God
love
bless
being
you,
around
Judy.
her and the people who work for her, and she's just a great lady, just a great lady.
The big thing that's coming up is we're all going to go to Monterey. We've been invited to the Monterey Jazz Festival.
Oh my God!
Are you taking?
See in Monterey.
Are you taking Roz up with you, Judy?
I'm hoping to.
Are you guys driving up the coast?
Well, we'll find out when it happens. It's in September.
Yeah.
And Roz has an amazing son who's been very wonderful and has taken her a lot of places. So maybe he'll bring her up to Monterey.
Very
You're
nice.
a dreamer. She keeps me going, I'll tell you.
That's great, Judy. God bless you. You've touched
That's what I
people's
say.
you've touched people's lives with your documentary, Judy.
Well, and they've
has
done the
she
same
ever?
for me, It's a two-way street. I'm getting as much from them as they are from me. It's just a wonderful, wonderful experience.
Well, I don't know if you're getting tired, Roz. I have a few more questions here for Judy. You want to hang on the line with us?
Oh, yeah. And
Okay.
I also want to say one more thing. She's
Sure.
also done wonders for parents of little girls and teenage girls who really want to go out there and play those horns. And it's given the parents a whole new idea of, women musicians and all that. They're pretty good people.
Right.
So
Exactly.
it's been an eye-opener for a lot of people.
Yeah, we get a lot of young girls coming to our screenings who are really energized by the film, and that's really what it's all about.
I think I read in one of the articles online from Variety, Judy, that I think it said that you were planning on making a shorter version of this for schools.
We just finished cutting that. Yeah, we just finished cutting a 56-minute version that we're going to package up as an educational package, and get it into the schools. so that all young people can see it, not just girls. Boys need to see this too.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
I think Americans need to see it, period, but because it's about history. And, you know, a lot of the things that I do, it was a friend of mine here locally that said, Larry, you have to come see this, you know, I mean, this jazz documentary, the female jazz musicians, because he knew it would be right up my alley in the sense that I like, you know, everything from that era. I like jazz and, you know, all those things. And, you know, normally I wouldn't go see a movie with a friend if he's going with his girlfriend. You know what I mean? I don't want to be like the third, you know, but when you know what I mean? But when he said what it was, I said, okay. And I went with my friend and his girlfriend, and man, am I glad that he did. I mean, that he asked me, because I'm not a female or a jazz musician, but it doesn't matter. It's about, you know, you want to kind of keep these things alive. I mean, recently I came across a kid who was 22 years old. He helped me move some things. I got him off of Craigslist or something like that. And he said he was into, you know, he wants to become a rap music guy or whatever. So he's kind of like in that music mentality. And we were in my car because I was driving from one location to the other. I needed his help. And in my car, I'm playing Frank Sinatra. Now, I know it's not jazz, but, you know, it's what I have Judy Garland in there. And I said to him, do you know who this is? And he said, no. I said, well, Frank Sinatra. He didn't even know the name. Now, I understand if you don't recognize the voice, and I understand if you don't recognize the song, but to not even know the name, you know, it's amazing. And so a lot of what I do here with Acorn TV is we want to perpetuate and keep these things alive because, you know, it's our culture, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you know, we've come into such an era of everything instantaneous that people think the world started yesterday. And it was never like that before. The work of great artists lived for hundreds of years, if not thousands, but for hundreds of years. And now it lives for 15 minutes. So it's a sad thing to lose all that. And I really feel that the purpose of doing a film like this is to let young people know what kind of struggles people went through to get them to where they are today. That it didn't happen. They weren't born with a right to anything. That there were people who struggled and gave their lives for things. And it's not just in music. It's, you know, it's in everything. That's what documentary filmmakers do. Mm-hmm. We remind the world of what went before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, to add on to one more thing you were saying there, Judy, I agree with, you know, the struggle, and it didn't just happen overnight, but you could even add one more layer on top of it when we're talking about jazz, because, you know, for a lot of years, I think Europeans accused America of, you know, well, you have no culture. Everything we have, we took from Europe, come from Europe. But jazz truly is, you know, a uniquely American art form, and it is our culture. And so it adds even another layer and another reason for the importance of your film.
It's really sad what's happened to the jazz audience in this country, though. I heard a wonderful description of jazz the other day. A woman whose young son wants to be a jazz musician said, she said, rock and roll is 4 chords that you play for 1,000 people. And jazz is 1,000 chords that you play for 4 people. I thought, well, that's right.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
You know, and just to follow up on what you just said about jazz being a part of our culture, and the sad part was that after World War II and a little bit after the Korean War too, most of our wonderful jazz musicians, black and white, but mostly black, found themselves going to Sweden, France, Germany, Italy, to play because the venues were just closing up here. We were getting the rock and roll and the Beatles, and everything was changing, and it was difficult to listen to good jazz musicians in this country for quite a while because they had to go to Europe to make a living. And I'm glad that sort of turned itself around, but it's still not. They're not making the living that their rock counterparts are making, that's for sure.
Well, a prime example of that would be my main man, Chet Baker, in the 60s. I mean, that's where he fled, to Europe. Now, I wouldn't say fled. Maybe, he might have had some legal issues in this country also. But but nevertheless, that aside, in the 50s, jazz was, kind of still hip and cool on the in-Hollywood scene in L.A. And, of course, Chet Baker was Mr. Cool Hip L.A. And, like you say, with the invasion of the Beatles and, the rock and everything, it was more profitable for him to be in Europe. And that's where jazz was hot there.
That's why I had to go to Europe to find some of my footage because some of the people like Vi Red, they were never recorded in the United States. But footage of them existed in Europe. So.
That's it. By the way, I have to compliment you also, Judy, because, nowadays, if you were to try to make a film about what's happening today, there's just, tons and tons of footage and, with video and everything else. But to come up with the amount of images, and I realize some of the images you used were probably, were some stock images here and there and stuff like that. But still, the amount of video and still images that you were able to put together for this, just reading the credits on your film, I mean, that's a film in itself, just watching the credits roll by. It must have I was thinking it must have taken them a month just to figure out the credits on this thing.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing. My compliments, Judy.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's see here. Oh, one of the obvious questions, and I didn't want to lead with it at the top. I think probably everybody wants to always ask you, but I just, now that people have an idea of what we're talking about, what inspired you, or what were the circumstances that led to you doing this project?
Well, I was born in a family of musicians. My mother was a songwriter. My brother played the trumpet. My other brother played saxophone. I played trumpet and piano as a kid. So music was a very, very important part of my life. And as a child, I was exposed to all the big bands and, grew up as jazz was flowering on the West Coast especially. And, when I was in high school, we used to go to the Lighthouse and sneak in because we were underage. But jazz was a very important part of my life. And then about 6 years ago, a young friend of mine came to me and said that she had met a woman who was a big band drummer and in the 40s. And I said, well, in what? Like in a high school or something like that? She said, no. She said she was a professional drummer. And I said, I don't think so, because I've seen every big band. I've seen every jazz group around, and I've never seen a woman play in any of those except, like for Marion McPartland. And she said, no, this woman said she played with an all-male band. And I thought, well, that's interesting if it's true. And so I started doing some research. And
who was it?
Sherry Tucker's book. And before I knew it, I was into this story. And one of the reasons I realized I quit playing was because the boys in the band in junior high school were really mean to me. And, they didn't want a girl in the band. And I suddenly identified with that. I knew what that was about. And, I knew what it was about from being a woman in general, what that's about. But I had the specific band experience. So I had a real passion for these women and what they went through.
Sure. Did you go to high school in the Valley?
No, I went to junior high school in East Los Angeles.
Okay.
East LA, man. I went to Hollenbeck Junior High School and Roosevelt High School.
Okay. Nice. Yeah. I went to Birmingham. Of course, at Birmingham High School in the Valley back in, the 60s and early 70s was really known for their music department all over Los Angeles. People literally had music transfers. It had the biggest music department. And, I played in the band. We had 20 trumpet players in our orchestra. If you could imagine a high school band with 20 trumpet players.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was the fourth chair, first trumpet. But I gave it up because I realized I didn't have the talent. But nevertheless, back in those days, music was a big thing in the schools.
That wasn't that nice.
Yeah, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
Okay, so, through this, you started digging for this story, and you started getting interesting in it, and then the filmmaker in you kind of took over. But did you have any idea, as far as, well, how much is this going to cost me to do, and where are we going to get the funding, and, that kind of a thing? How did you put that together?
Well, as a filmmaker, yes, I had an idea of how much it was going to cost. And no, I didn't know how I was going to put the funding together. But having been involved in the music business all my life, I had a lot of good friends in the music business. And the first one that I went to was the executive producer, Mike Green, who had been the head of the Grammys for 14 years. And he liked the idea of this film. And so he financed me to do a short demo reel, a 7-minute demo reel. And with that, I went to another friend of mine, Herb Alpert.
Oh, my gosh.
And Herb had financed part of my Blacklist film.
Is he still alive?
Herb Alpert?
Yeah.
Of course.
Well, I mean, I know he wouldn't be that old, but I remember it was in the 60s when, like I said, it was Herb Alpert that said, I came home and I said, Mom, I want to play trumpet. It was because of Herb Alpert, and then, like I said, then I started taking lessons and my teacher kind of flipped me over to Chet Baker, but I still, to this day, love Herb Alpert.
Well, Herb Alpert is very much alive and doing very well. He has a jazz club out here called Vibrato, and he's taken a lot of his money and put it into music education and is doing very wonderful charitable work with his money. And he saw the demo reel and he sort of kicked off the whole fundraising. And from there, I went to a man who was not a friend of mine, but was a friend of a friend of mine. And that was Hugh Hefner.
Mm-hmm.
And Hugh Hefner, as you know, has the great Playboy Jazz Festival here.
Mm-hmm.
And his interest in jazz has been very well known on the West Coast.
Who will ever forget his Playboy After Dark shows? I mean,
yes, that was a great show on television.
It was incredible. And I was saying how in the 50s, in the late 50s, even how, jazz was still the hip, cool in Hollywood scene. And those parties, those TV shows, those Playboy After Dark hours were just, they were so hef with the whole jazz scene.
They were wonderful. That was a great show. And so, a lot of people have forgotten that he is really an enormously staunch supporter of jazz.
Absolutely.
So, and that with the combination of the women, and Hef came in. So, and he's been very good ever since. He's been very supportive of us.
Well, it's great that he supports jazz and all that, but I imagine you must have still had to put on one heck of a pitch meeting. I mean, I would think that he and Playboy gets hit up, 10 times a day for sponsor this, sponsor that, back this, back that. So you must have put on quite a pitch meeting with that 7-minute reel.
I have to be honest with you. I've had to pitch this film for 4-5 years, but the pitch to Hef was nothing more than the demo reel. He saw it and bought it on that. He was good. It's since then that I've had to raise the rest of the money, because no one person gives you all the money, that I really had to put on the Dog and Pony Show. And we're still raising money for the film because we haven't paid for all our music rights yet. And in order to release the film, we have to pay an enormous music rights budget. We can show it at film festivals, but we have not been able to take it out theatrically yet. So here I am, pitching again to anybody who wants to contribute. We have
Well,
a
you know-
nonprofit 501c3. You can go to the girlsintheband.com and find out our email address and email me if you're interested.
Absolutely. And, you know, here's a picture of your website right here that we're showing on live right now. But I would imagine, you know, now that you have the full film in the can, and it's so good, it's so well done, it's so gripping. And not only that, you're probably collecting, stacking up awards from one festival after the next, that, I mean, I would think you've passed the point of critical mass at this point. You should be able to.
I hope so. Critical mass doesn't always equate to money, but on the awards, I just want to say that you know, we have won the Audience Choice Award at 3 festivals, and today we just found out that we are in the Best of the Fest showing in Minneapolis.
Goodness.
When are you coming back,
We're
Judy?
at Minneapolis Film Festival, and next week they are going to show the films that were considered the best of the fest, and ours is one of them. And it's showing on Sunday night, I believe at 6 p.m. And we'll put it up on our Facebook page and our website.
Cool.
Which, may I give my website?
Of course.
It's www.thegirlsintheband.com. And I'd love to have your listeners go there, visit our website.
Absolutely.
And, you know, if anyone's interested in supporting the film, we're still open to putting their name on the end credits. So,
What's a minimum donation? Like $100 or something?
you know, $100 is a great donation. A minimum donation is $20.
Oh, okay. Well, you know, listen, everything's relative. I looked at this film, and my first reaction was, she probably had about $500,000 to $1 million budget on this film. I mean, you could just see all the travel that's involved. You can see the clips, the images, the editing. I mean, it's there. So I was estimating in my mind $500,000 to $1 million. Okay, where were you on the budget on this?
We're on the low side of your estimation.
Okay. But I mean, you could see it's not little league ball here. This is still a major production. I mean, it may not be $100 million, you know, big budget film that's up for an Oscar, but nevertheless, this is not a little, you know, $20,000 production or anything like that. This is a big league production.
Yes, that's right. And they do cost money. And anybody who wants to contribute, we're a nonprofit. We have a 501c3, so any contributions are tax deductible. There's also on our website, you can buy swag from the film. There's t-shirts, great looking t-shirts. That image right there is on our t-shirts. And there's a poster of that Harlem poster and of this poster that you're looking at.
We didn't really talk too much about it, but when Judy mentions the Harlem poster, what she did at the end of the movie was she took a whole group of female jazz musicians from, you know, the old days all the way up to current jazz musicians that are active, female jazz musicians active today, and put them. Was Maria Schneider in that grouping at the?
Maria's not, but Roz is in there.
Okay, and that was in New York. So you flew these people in. And
They flew in on their own.
Are you kidding?
We didn't have the budget to fly them in, and they all wanted to come.
Oh, yeah, this is a big moment, a big historical moment for women musicians. We were looking forward to that photo, believe me.
Yeah, I just love Maria McPartland's, you know, story about her husband, the trumpet player, why he couldn't show up. You know, he didn't want to be bothered to get out of bed to go be in that poster, which is living in infamy now. And, you know, but that was a funny story, and these ladies wanted to be a part of that, and I think that's really, really cool. Before we got a couple more minutes, and then I end every show, Judy, and you might recall when I first met you outside the theater that night, and that day, and I bought one of your CDs or your DVDs, I should say. I told you that my favorite, you know, singer of all time is Judy Garland. I love Judy Garland. And you told me you were named after Judy Garland. That kind of blew my mind a little bit. But You know, it was my mother's favorite was Judy. My father's favorite was Nat King Cole. So I still, you know, may my parents rest in peace. I still love Judy and Nat King Cole. But
You're lucky they didn't name you Judy.
or Nat, you know, I don't know. But in any case, what I do with my webcast here is I end every show with a segment called Always Chasing Rainbows, where we have to show one Judy song in every show. So, and we've done over 50 shows now. So that's, you know, the last 5 minutes of the show. We're going to show a Judy number, and I picked something kind of special for both of you ladies tonight. But before, we still have a few minutes, and before we do, just another couple of thoughts I had in watching your film, Judy. Was there, you know, any one person that you wanted to get for the film, but maybe you were not able to get? Maybe they didn't want to, or they were not available, or, you know, obviously among the living people, that is.
Yes, I wanted Vi Red to be on the film. She's in the film in a film clip, but Vi Red did not want to talk about this time. It was too painful for her. So that was one person. And then there was a drummer named Dottie Dodgen who I called. And Dottie said, "Oh, that was so long ago. I don't know. I don't want to talk about that." Well, after she saw the film, then she was sorry that she had said that. But I don't think Vi Red has seen the film yet, but maybe she'll be sorry too.
Well, instead of, you know, first of all, let me commend you in the sense of she turned you down, but she was still an important person in jazz history. And regardless of turning you down, you put her in the film, rightfully so. So, you know, nice job.
Well, thank you. You know, it wasn't something I took personally. She was a great artist, and she deserved to be in the film, so she was.
Well, you say, you know, that maybe she'll be sorry, but, you know, maybe if she saw the film, maybe, you know, always a chance for one more interview?
Well, who knows? Who knows?
I know. If you had the money, you could do it, you know?
Yeah. I don't think I'm going to go back and re-edit the whole film to include it as an interview, but
Okay.
You know, maybe I'll put it on my website or something.
Yeah, a web exclusive. How about that? Was there anyone that you interviewed, and then afterwards, when, you know, you look back at the tape, you decided that maybe their content just maybe wasn't as significant as you hoped it was going to be, and just basically didn't put it in the film, or it had to cut it?
Oh, I interviewed probably 15 or 20 more women that did not end up in the film.
Right. Okay.
That's because you just can't put them all in. And as the story starts to develop, it begins to show you where it wants to go. And until you know that, you interview a lot of people, or you do a lot of things that are not going to end up being significant to the film. So right in the very beginning, we went back to New York and shot for 2 days in a jazz club back there, and interviewed a bunch of women who were part of a jazz festival. And I don't think much of any of them made it into the film.
Well, in a way, I'm really glad to hear that. Not that I want to see anybody get their heart broken or disappointed or anything like that, but I did wonder that, because it actually means to me that you got the best of the best. You went out there, you got as much information as you possibly could grab, and then you made those tough choices as to what really was important to this documentary, what was important to the jazz era. Here you had a lady that refused you on the interview, but yet she was important. She's featured in the film, whereas somebody else who said yes, but maybe it didn't fit or wasn't as significant. So it lends credibility, I think, to what you did, and I'm kind of glad to hear that.
Well, that's the process of making a documentary. You don't really know in advance where you're going to go. The story starts telling itself to you as you get into it, as you hear people talk, as you begin to step back from it and take a big view. Like, we never knew that we were going to use that photograph in that way until we were very well into the film. So you got to let it, it's like jazz. You know?
Yeah.
You got to let it happen.
Okay, well, we're running out of time, but I have to ask a quick one. Roz, hang with us here.
Sure.
What's next for you, Judy? I mean, as far as I'm looking past the girls in the band now. I know you still have some unfinished business with the girls in the band, but is there another project on the horizon? I mean, you've had a long list of incredible projects. What's next?
You know, I've had I've had 2 other projects pitched to me as a result of this, but I haven't made a commitment to either one of them, so I don't really want to say that. I have a screenplay that I've written that one of these days I would like to get around to doing. But right now, I want to focus on a few very important things that have to happen with this film. One of them is to finish paying for the music rights so that I can get it out there theatrically. And the other is to make a real concerted effort to get it into schools. And that's a big thrust of what I'm doing right now.
Sounds good. Well, hang tight, ladies. I picked this particular Judy Garland number in honor of your presence tonight. I hope you'll understand the fit, but we're going to go to our last segment of the night. It's called Always Chasing Rainbows. Well, as I mentioned earlier, every show I end with a segment with Judy Garland to show one number. For me, it's something about her speaks to me, and I find her moments in film, her concerts, her TV shows to be inspirational. You start to learn the life of Judy Garland. She overcame a lot. She had a difficult life, but yet when she was on film and performing on film, that was her home, and that's where she was at peace. And in every Judy Garland movie, there's always, that great moment. Her career is about great moments in film, and not necessarily the greatest movie of all of them, but they all have a certain 1 or 2 great Judy moments. Tonight, what I've chosen from 1938 is a movie, Everybody Swing. You may recall this. I don't know if you've ever seen this, but Judy Garland, I would not classify her as a jazz singer per se, but when she first came up, she was regarded as a swing singer. And I think swing I would consider to be the first cousin of jazz, maybe. How about that, Roz?
Well, it's an offshoot, or it's entirely different art form, I think, than jazz. Although the great jazz women vocalists I could listen to forever. And Judy Garland's voice is so beautiful and so poignant, and you could bring tears to your eyes just following her notes. And she was a wonderful performer, and had a beautiful voice and a sad life, unfortunately.
Well, before we go to the clip, since you mentioned jazz singers you could watch forever, one of the films that I thought about in seeing your documentary, Judy, was I actually have it in my library, but the name is escaping me, but it's like The Day in the Life of a Jazz Singer, Anita O'Day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's fabulous, and I think both of you would enjoy it if you haven't already seen it.
I've seen it.
Yeah,
it's a great,
I have too.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, playing, of course, with Stan Kenton,
Jazz
and
on
before
a Summer
that, Gene
Day.
Krupa. Yeah, Jazz on a Summer Day. Thank you for the
Summer
Newport
Day.
Jazz Festival. Yes, and her, of course, her performance of Sweet Georgia Brown there was phenomenal. Her time, of course, with Gene Krupa, and then later with Stan Kenton for only a year. But that's just you talk about a jazz singer. That's a jazz singer. But Judy's not. But she's still in my show. So in this particular film, 1938, Judy's. This is a year before The Wizard of Oz, and she's only about 14 years old here. Maybe just turned 15. It's called Everybody Swing. Is the movie Swing, Mr. Mendelssohn. So let's take a quick peek at this.
My heart goes dancing in the sun. oh. Teach me how to sing music with a modern rhythm. Let me swing, Mr. Mendelssohn, swing. Music is a thing that's no good without that rhythm, sweet and hot, fast and slow. So get yourself a little dash of holy-ho and swing it, Mr. Mendelssohn, swing it high. Hey, swing it low. Oh, da-da-da-da-da-da, and swing it, Mr. Mendelssohn, swing. Oh, da-da-da, and swing it, Mr. Mendelssohn, swing it, Mr. Felix Mendelssohn. Da-ra-di-da-da-ra-di-da-da-ra-di-da. In my singing school, I am one of many who is just a fool. Mr. Mendelssohn's had his day, many good man's here to stay. Die-di-di-do, die-di-di-di-di-di, ra-da-da-da-ra-da-da-ra-da-da, hey-hey-hey-hey-hey-hey, oh-oh-oh-oh, oh.
Well, there was little rebellious Judy getting in trouble with the teacher there. But
I never heard of that. I think I was just about the age of going to the movies by myself for a quarter. And that she was 14 in 1938.
well, no, she was probably just turned 15. She was born in 1922. But
Oh, was she really?
yeah, but,
Oh, I always thought I was older than she. But
yeah, she was
all
born in
right.
22. But the thing is, even though the movie was released in 1938, I think it was shot in 1937. So that would have been about a year and a half before Wizard of Oz.
Uh-huh.
You know.
Boy, they really had her belting it out so young. It's a wonder she had a voice left.
Yeah, well,
40
this
years
was
later.
a year after Broadway Melody of 1938, which was also filmed in 37, because that was the one where she did Dear Mr. Gable. You always, you made me love you, and of course that popped her on the scene, and that's probably what got her the Wizard of Oz. But in any case, it was like the swinginest swing I could find, and like I said, she's not a jazz singer, so.
Oh, it was interesting. I enjoyed listening to her voice again.
Yeah.
It's been a long time.
Well, first off, Roz, I'm going to say goodnight to you. Thank you so much for staying up late. It's midnight here, which means it's after 10 there.
It's only 10 o'clock here. So
I'm doing a 2-hour home shopping thing in an hour.
He always stays up late.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well,
I can't get rid of those old habits.
the life of a jazz musician, right? But what's my excuse? I'm up every night till when I get off the air here, I'm running right to the Shop NBC studios to do home shopping for 2 hours. So if you have cable TV, you put on Shop NBC, you'll see me from your time would be 11 to 1 selling watches. Got to pay the rent, But
well, I've enjoyed this very, very much.
But thank you, Roz. God bless you, and what a great contribution you've been to the jazz scene, really.
Well, just keep plugging the film.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Roz.
Thank you, Roz. Good night.
Thank you, Larry. This has been fantastic. You put on a really good show.
Oh, come on now. You're just saying that.
I am saying that.
I know
I'm
you
saying
are.
it because you do your homework. You've done your research.
Well, thank you, Judy. This one was kind of easy. It was something I genuinely was interested in, something I really, I love your film. And I mean, there's no nothing false about that. I mean, I was blown away.
Thank you so much. I got to tell you, it's that kind of reaction that has made these past 6 years all worthwhile.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're hearing it over and over and over, so you know that I'm not kidding. It's genuine, because I know you're getting that kind of response. I saw people coming all up to you. In fact, I I went downstairs and took 20, 30 minutes, and then I came back up because you were swamped.
Yeah.
After the film.
People are pretty enthusiastic when they come out of seeing the film. It gives them something. And
Judy, if I had the money, I would, whatever you need for those music rights, $50 grand, $100 grand, I'd write the check right now.
Thank you, Larry. I hope there is somebody out there who hears those words and wants to do that.
It only takes one, right? I'm still looking for my angel too. I need an angel on my side of things too, but we won't go into that right now. So when the film comes back, I guess it's next Sunday to Minneapolis. Are you coming, or just they're going to play it?
No, I'm not coming. They're just showing it as part of their wrap-up of the film festival.
Okay, I hope it gets good press out here and everybody sells it out.
Minneapolis was very, very good to me. I really loved Minneapolis, and so I hope people will go out and see that last screening of it.
All right, Judy, thank you. And I close every show, and it's so fitting tonight. Our Always Chasing Rainbows section at the end of the show is all about, pursuing your dreams and your goals and always chasing those rainbows. Never give up. And I'm still chasing my dreams, and, always keep chasing those rainbows. Until next week, I'm Larry Megan. Peace, love, and all good things.
Chill with Larry Megan.